This is gonna be a very quick video. I just like to share some tips that will make the process go a little bit better when you're making the 3D Octagon mask with tabs, which I uploaded the video on May 31st. And since then, I have made probably over 80 masks in this style. So just a little bit detail that I would like to share that will make it goes a little bit smoother. The first one is after you hem your edges. So I think this is the second step in the mask making. So you fold the panel down and up to create a filter pocket opening. So at this point, I like to kind of just try to trim the raw edge on both sides. I mean, this one is not, it lined up pretty good, but sometimes it's a little bit off when you're overlapping all these panels. So I would just trim just enough to make them all line up on one line, like nice and smooth. You don't want to trim too much off because we don't want to lose a lot of those widths. So just like this, just a little bit, but now it's all very clean. It's all on one line, and same with this side. You do the same with this side. So this will just make it a little better later when you're trying to stitch the seam allowance. So okay, so then we'll do the next tip. I have made a little paper template. This is to mark the corners, so you don't have to measure it every time you're trying to do these corners. So in my previous video, I said to measure 1 inch from this point to this point, another inch from this point to this point, and then draw a line. But I've since changed it to like 1 inch here, but over here I changed it to 1 inch and a quarter. So after you do the seam allowance about 1/4 inch, this will end up with just like 1 inch here and 1 inch here. Okay, but if you want to keep it just 1 inch this way and 1 inch this way, it's okay too. So basically what I did is I gathered like a 3x5 paper card stock and just trim off the corner. So 1 inch this way, 1 inch and a quarter this way, just cut it off and just use this as a template to make the mark for stitches later. So this make it really fast, just to draw the corners like these. You can just go on the machine, like we mentioned in the previous video, just stitch along this line and stop right here, about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, go all the way down, and stop right here on the line, and then continue stitch, just finish the stitches. So this will make it so much faster. You don't have to measure using a ruler each time for every corner. The last tip is probably the most important one. So in my previous video, I said to create a nose and chin pleats, we just simply fold this up and line up this straight edge with your stitch, and then you stitch it up, which still work if we are always so precise. In the perfect world, it all gonna work beautifully, but we are not always so precise when we're making this mask, especially if you're trying to make them really fast for donation in big quantity. We can always be so precise. So what will happen is, let's try to do what we always should do, like in the perfect world. Line up this edge with this stitch. I'm just gonna pin it just to pretend that we stitched up, and do the same thing here. You see? And what happened is, if you are not so precise, and when we do this, when you close this mask, it could be, right now it's not as bad, but sometimes, do you see these two panels? Sometimes could be like quite a bit off. Did you see that? The edge over here and over here, they're not really lining up perfectly. And what will happen later is if you stitch them up like this, when you wear it, it's not gonna be very symmetrical. And you might not mind it, but it bugs me. So, and a better way to do this is don't worry about lining this up perfectly on the back side. We're not gonna see the back side when we wear the mask anyway. So instead, what you want to do is open these panels up and then fold it in half and make sure the corners all line up. And then, do you see this? Then we just manually kind of force these two panels and make sure they line up. So they overlap like perfectly. You double check. Just use your finger to kind of force them. See, now it looks pretty good from this side and this side. Just double check and then clip them so it would hold the position, and do the same thing on this side. Make sure the corner and corners are lined up, and then pull this panel so they're all the way up, and just check. This side looks pretty good. Everything's lined up, and then clip, and then can you see? All lined up, and then we bring it to the machine. And when I stitch, I just fold this side up and hold it with my hand, and then run this side through my sewing machine. So one line here, top to bottom, that's parallel to this line. So when you are done, it will look really nice on the front. But when you look at the back, it doesn't not necessarily means this line lines up straight, which is fine because it's on the back side. We will normally would never see it. But on the front, it will look really clean and nice. Everything's lined up and symmetrical. When you wear it, nothing's off. So this is probably the most important tip. If you're not gonna do anything else, make sure you do pay attention to this tip and apply it to your mask making. Okay, so if you haven't tried this 3D Octagon mask, we really hope you give it a try. This is probably my favorite mask so far, and it goes really fast and it's great fit for most people. So give it a try and let me know if you liked it. Thanks, and stay healthy.